Okay, on the Math 4 exam review, we're now doing problem 3b, which again asked us to solve this using a system of equations in two variables. So, I have 2 computer disks and 3 notebooks that cost $21. They're also telling me that 5 computer disks and 4 notebooks cost $35, and they want us to find the price of each one. So the first thing I'm going to do is name my variables. So I'm going to start with computer disks, and I'm going to call that D equals the disks. And then I'm going to name my other unknown, which is my notebooks, so I'm going to say N is my notebooks. You always want to start by labeling your variables. Okay, so let's go back and see what we have. We have 2 computer disks, that would be 2 Ds, and 3 notebooks plus 3 N's equals $21. That's the first sentence. 2 computer disks and 3 notebooks cost $21. So 2 of the D's plus 3 of the N's equals 21. Now for the second statement, it says 5 computer disks, 5 D's, and plus 4 notebooks, 4 N's, equals $35. So right away I've got my 2 equations in my 2 unknowns set up in a way that I can use elimination by addition to solve them. So what I don't have here is the same number in different signs in front of one of the variables, and I need to have that. So I can choose to either make my D's be the same, or I can choose to make my N's be the same. I'm going to pick my N's, no particular reason. I'm just going to choose my N's, which means since neither one of these, I can't multiply something by 3 to get 4, at least not something easy. Can't multiply something by 2 to get 5, so I chose my N's already. That means I have to multiply the top one by 4 and the bottom one by -3, because if I do that, I'll have positive 12n up here and negative 12n down here, and that will give me a variable that I can eliminate. I could have said the top one by 5 and the bottom one by -2 would have been perfectly fine. So let me rewrite my equations here, remembering this time to multiply through by everything. So 4 times 2d is 8d, 4 times 3n is 12n, and 4 times 21 is 84. So I have rewritten my first equation, and now I'm going to multiply the second equation. -3 times 5d is -15d. -3 times 4n is -12n. There's that plus and minus I was looking for. And -3 times 35 is -105. So now they're ready for me to add those 2 equations. So 8 minus 15d is -7d. Positive 12 and -12 cancel, and 84 minus 105 is -21. So it looked pretty hairy up here, but actually it's not too bad. Divide by -7 and d is 3. Now what do I do with that d? I take it back to one of those 2 equations, either one, and plug 3 in where I see a d so that I can solve for n. I'm going to choose the first equation, but of course it doesn't make any difference. That gives me 2 times 3 plus 3n equals 21. You notice I didn't pick the one with bigger numbers in it, because why work with the bigger numbers? 2 times 3 is 6 plus 3n equals 21. I'm going to subtract 6 from 21, and I have 3n equals 15, and that gives me n equals 5. So that means, remember, again, I don't want to put this as an ordered pair 3, 5. I'm not looking for the place 2 lines cross anymore. I'm looking for the answer to the question they gave us. They asked us to find the price of both the computer disks and the notebooks. So I would say the disks cost $3. The notebooks costs $5. Okay, the discs cost $3 and the notebooks cost $5. Remember, on a word problem, you are always required to answer the question, not just solve for the variables. Okay, for C we have another word problem, tells us Sarah Meehan blends coffee for tasty delight. She needs to prepare 130 pounds of blended coffee beans, selling for $4.62 per pound. She plans to do this by blending together a high-quality bean costing $6 a pound and a cheaper one costing $3 a pound. To the nearest pound, that's important there, nearest pound, find how much quality coffee bean and how much cheaper coffee bean she should blend. So remember, I've got to name my variables. So I'm going to call, oops, don't have my pen again. This is getting to be a habit, isn't it? I'm going to call my quality bean Q and my cheaper bean C. Okay, so I know that, and that's the amount of my quality bean is Q and the amount of my cheaper bean is C. And I know that I have to have 130 pounds of coffee. So that lends itself right to my first equation. Q plus C equals 130. The amount of the quality bean added to the amount of the cheap bean comes up to the total amount I need. Okay, what I also know is that my quality bean cost me $6 a pound and my cheaper bean cost me $3 a pound, or cost Sarah, I'm not a coffee drinker, and that the total number of pounds is going to be $4.62 each pound. So that means I need to attach my prices to these. So my quality bean was $6 a pound, so that's 6Q. My cheaper bean was $3 a pound, so that's $3 times each of those pounds of cheaper beans is equal to $4.62 times all of them, because the whole thing, once I've combined them, will cost, there'll be 130 pounds at $4.62 a pound. So those are my two equations. So this one so far doesn't so much lend itself to anything, but it looks a little quirky to add. So I'm going to choose to take this equation, and this might not be your choice, you could use addition. I'm going to say that gives me Q equals 130 minus C. I'm subtracting the C over, and now I'm going to use substitution. Again, if you wanted to multiply that out and use addition, you could just multiply the top by negative C or by -3 and easily use that. It would have been a perfectly acceptable method. Okay, so I've got Q equals 130 minus C, so that's going to give me 6 times 130 minus C, that's what we said Q was, plus 3C equals, and when I multiply that out, I get $600.60. Okay, now remember it told us to round to the nearest pound, but I don't want to round up here. I want to round when I get down to pounds. So 6 times 130 is 780 minus 6C plus 3C equals $600.60. So that's going to give me 780 minus 3C equals $600.60. Subtract 780 and I have negative 3C equals negative 179.40. Divide by negative 3 and C is going to be 59.8 pounds. Now they asked us to round to the nearest pound, so that's going to be 60 pounds. And now I know that I have 60 pounds of the cheap one, so I'm going to come back up and substitute into here. So I have Q equals 130 minus 60, which makes Q equal 70 pounds. So remember, answer the question. I need 70 pounds of quality beans and 60 pounds of cheap beans. And 70 and 60 adds up to the total that we need, so that looks like the right answer. Remember, in a word problem, you answer the question, so that's the answer to the question.